everyone, today I wanted to share a card that I recently made for an online card class. The goal of the day was to use a large background stamp as the main focal point of the card. So here's what I came up with. Today I'm using this Hero Arts background stamp called Large Fabric Design, and I'm going to be stamping it on black cardstock using Hero Arts ink in the shade Butterbar. You could actually use any light color ink that you would like. I'm just using yellow because that's what I have on hand. Basically, you're trying to get a watermark image of the large stamp onto the black cardstock. So you'll see here in a second, I'm going to just start aligning this black paper and use a scratch piece of paper here to catch any extra ink that the stamp gives off. So as I press, you'll see that I have some excess ink that shows up on the edges of the white sheet, and it'll just catch that. And I'll flip over the black cardstock here and you'll see my watermark image. The purpose of this is to see the image and know where the outline is, and then I'm going to use these metallic markers from American Crafts to color in each section. You'll see that I'm not too concerned with keeping any shape of the actual stamp, but rather I'm just shading in to cover a general area of the design. So for example, here I'm using the gold to cover the giant floral leaf in the middle of the design. I'm also making sure to keep my pen strokes smooth in general by staying in the same direction so that the color will look nice and crisp in my next step when I'm going into embossing. So I tried out several versions of this technique, and I find that this is the easiest way of getting the color in before embossing. I'll speed up here just to show you how I colored each section. As you can see, I used a few other colors of the metallic markers in the shade teal, violet, and blue. Again, notice how I'm not too concerned or careful about staying in the lines or keeping the shape of the stamp design. It'll be taken care of later on with the embossing powder as far as getting the detail of the image. I'm just working on getting the sections covered with ink, and then I'll be stamping in Versamark and embossing in just a minute here. I'm just going to finish up with the blue and add in green at the bottom, and then that covers the entire image for me. Now this is kind of the magical part of the card. I'm using the same background stamp again, but this time inking it up with Versamark clear ink. This is a super sticky clear ink that is great at holding embossing powder and creating watermarks. So once I have my stamp all inked up, I'm going to be stamping my piece again. But before I put my paper down, I'm going to use my EK Success powder tool to make sure I have no static cling or wet spots on my card. I don't want any wetness or static on this card because I will be embossing it. I only want my powder to stick to certain areas, which my stamp will designate which areas I want the powder to stick to. So I'm going to put down the black piece again, making sure to align it as best as possible towards the bottom of the stamp. Push down really well. I'll use a scrap sheet of paper again just to catch any excess ink. And I'll just make sure to rub the entire image really well, making sure not to skip any spots. And then once that's done, I'll remove this card, flip it over, and I will have a watermark. It's kind of hard to tell through video, but it's definitely there. Now I'm going to use my Inkadinkado black embossing powder. I'll just spoon out a little powder onto my card and sprinkle it on top here. I love these little containers that I got from Staples. They hold my embossing powders really well, and it's an easy way to clean up. If you haven't put your embossing powders into one of these containers or even a larger container, I highly recommend it compared to the little ones that they usually sell them in. So here I'm just going to shake the embossing powder around the image, making sure to catch all the sticky Versamark ink, and you'll see that the black powder only sticks to certain elements of the card, revealing the colored section, which looks like I colored it perfectly, but in reality it was very messy, as you can tell. So the embossing powder definitely makes the entire card look a lot cleaner and crisper than how I had colored it in. So now I'm just heating in my embossing powder. It takes a minute for this gun to heat up, so I will probably speed this up here in a second. and you'll see that as it melts, it turns into a glossy finish from the matte embossing powder originally being matte, as I was saying. So here's the image once it's all embossed, and as you can see, it's nice and glossy, and the metallic marker stays nice and sheen. It's almost iridescent overall altogether. Next, I'm going to take my Simon Says stamp Life is a Journey set and pick out 2 different stamps. The first one is going to be the thank you kind of on the bottom there, and then the other one is going to say for everything. So I'll combine the 2 sentiments together and just line them up on my grid mat here and get the for everything right underneath to be aligned. I'll pick up the entire image with my stamp press in a minute here, and I'll just make sure to line up my stamp press grid with my mat, and everything should be aligned perfectly. Next, I'm going to use my powder tool again just to remove any static cling from this little black strip here, and I will be embossing this sentiment as well using Versamark ink. So here I'm using my Versamark and getting the clear stamp nice and inked up, and then I'll align it to the black piece and just get that centered there and make sure I catch all the letters, giving it a good press there so that the image is nice and crisp. Next, I'll be taking my gold embossing powder from Inka Dinka Doo and spreading that over the letters. It's again in one of these Staples containers, which works great again at cleaning up the mess that typically these embossing powders make. So I'll just sprinkle on some. I missed a spot there on the T, so I'll just add a little bit more and get that shaken off any excess powder that may be there. Here you can see how it looks as it melts. It gets very bright and almost iridescent as it melts. And I will just heat the rest of this image, and then I'll be adding it to the front of my card in just a second here. So here are the pieces of my finished card. I am starting with a 5.5 by 4.25 inch black cardstock as my base, and then I have a blue and a violet inset for the pieces. I'm also going to trim down this floral background piece so that it fits in the center of my card. So there it is trimmed up, and I'm going to bring in my tape runner adhesive and just begin assembling the entire card. So here I'm just going to run the adhesive around all 4 edges of my card, and I'm one that doesn't like my piece to come up in any way, shape, or form, so I'm going to be adding in some in the middle as well and just kind of making a grid out of the whole thing. It's probably a lot more adhesive than I need, but you know, I just want it to stay there permanently and not come off. So I'm just going to align the whole thing and get all my margins as close as possible inset. Next, I'm going to take my purple piece and do the same thing. Get adhesive around the 4 edges, and probably, again, too much adhesive, but I can't help myself. What can I say? So I'll insert that as well and get that going. And the last part of it is to put on some dimensional adhesive onto the floral piece, and I will be adhering that down as well to the front. This gives the card some great dimension, as well as picks up the floral background image as my major focal point as well. So it's not all flat, it's very dimensional in the end. So I'm going to place that in the center of my card, aligning it as best as possible once again, and pressing down firmly so that everything sticks and adheres nicely. Then I was trying to decide if I wanted my sentiment to go all the way across the card, which it looks nice, but I'm trying to figure out if I wanted that or something a little different. So I decided to go with something a little different, and I'm going to trim off some of the edge. And I think I was debating, and then I decided that I was going to go with a banner cut. So to do the banner cut, I cut a little slit in the middle of each side, and then I went from the corner to the middle slit to make the banner. And you can see it's like a little triangle shape. And I'll do that again to the other side. In the middle, I'll make a slit, go from the corner to the middle, and then from the other corner to the middle, and it makes this cute little banner. And I just need to get the scissors to get in there and then pull off the piece. There we go. All right, so now we have our banner, and I'm going to adhere this as well with some dimensional adhesive. So I'll put on my dimensionals, remove the adhesive, and stick it to the center between the gold floral and the purple. I think it pulls in the gold perfectly. The sentiment and the gold metallic marker match very well. And this is my finished card using the floral background stamp as my focal point with the sentiment from Simon Says stamp. I think it turned out great, and I'm super excited to share further videos with you in the near future. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!